Sure, all this furniture is great, but what am I supposed to do with all of my books? Well, worry not, wizard friends. For today, we're making some bookshelves. I start out with a bunch of popsicle sticks, and I put them in this really thick brown wash. This is the same wash I mixed up for my angel diorama ages ago, and I've just got some left over. And I soak them in that, and then wipe off all the excess after a few moments. And this is great because it means we don't need to paint the sticks later on, and it's got a really nice color to them already. You could use wood stain, or you could just use normal paint as well. I just found this is really fast and super easy. I then, before they've even really had a chance to dry, start gluing them all together using tacky glue or PVA glue. Both I tried and both work great. So I stick 2 popsicle sticks together and then I'll let them dry. Make sure to put it on a piece of parchment paper so it doesn't get stuck to anything. So it'll be 2 popsicle sticks for any shelf or any wall of a bookshelf, and then 5 popsicle sticks for the backing piece of the bookshelf. And all up, one bookshelf takes 13 popsicle sticks, which is really good. And while I wait for those to dry, I get started making the books. I just cut a piece of single corrugated cardboard to 1/2 inch. If you have double corrugated cardboard, I'd go with that, because later on I end up doubling up and sticking the 2 pieces of single corrugated cardboard together. And despite cutting some at 3/4 inch, that ends up being way too big for these bookshelves. So I stick with the 1/2 inch. And after leaving those wooden pieces dry overnight, I start cutting them. I just line them up with my cutting mat to get one really straight edge, and then I measure from that edge 2.5 inches up. For a 28 and a 32mm miniature, these are quite big bookshelves, but I like the cartoony and oversized look that they give. So I cut the main base as 2.5 inches, and then I cut the 2 walls on either side to match. And then I cut the floor and the roof of the bookshelf. I don't really know what other word to use. And I cut those to fit within the little hole. I don't measure it, I just do it by eye. And it's much easier to do this with a Stanley knife or an Alpha knife, because if you're using clippers, at least the clippers I was using, it tends to break up and crack the 2 glued pieces in half. And I use tacky glue for the most part to keep it together, but once it's all together, I then add any additional pieces with PVA glue. And you can see here, I didn't quite measure good enough, and one piece ended up being too big and pushing it a bit to the side. But that's fine, it adds to that little cartoony charm. And there we have the basic structure of our entire bookshelf. And in my experimentation, I found laying glue down like this didn't impact the final result. It was still just as strong and it looked just as great. It didn't have any glue marks or anything like that, as long as the glue was flattened out. I then also made some jumbo popsicle sticks, dyed in the same way, and then cut them to the same length, 2.5 inches, and made it into a little bit of a wardrobe. Then add on some beads to add hinges and door handles, and you've got a perfect easy wardrobe. I also add in some nuts down the bottom, that way it has some nice weight and it won't topple over really easily. Because really, it's just wood and it's very light. And for a different style, a different version, I add this little drawer down the bottom using not quite large jumbo popsicle sticks, but not as small as the normal size popsicle stick. Kind of like an in-between. And I cut 2 pieces to make a little drawer, as well as cutting 1 piece of a normal popsicle stick to act like the handle or the thing that you'd pull out. And with all these techniques, you can really easily make a bunch of different types of upright furniture. And now for filling all of those shelves, I just cut the 1/2 inch strip of double corrugated cardboard that we made, and I cut that into 1/2 inch squares. And I roughly do this by eye, it doesn't need to be exact, because we're going to wrap it in colored paper later, and that colored paper is going to give us majority of the book shape. And the go-to glue here is going to be glue stick, because it's not going to warp or be all runny. It's going to set really easily. And we just fold around some colored pieces of paper. And in my opinion, it looks great with some really real varied colors and really bright colors. It adds more to that cartoony look. I just use a little bit of PVA glue just to stick them all on. And kind of go crazy with it. Layer them properly, have a few lying on their side, tilt them askew, make it look interesting. And if you really wanted to mute the colors, you could put a thin brown or black wash over the entire thing when you're done. And that'll give it a much more realistic and grounded sort of coloration. But I like the really bright colors. To be honest, I don't think just books will be enough. In fact, I think our little wizard friend is quite into alchemy. So let's make a nice shelf so he can store all of his potions on. I just grab my drawer of beads and I pull out a bunch of random sizes and shapes, and I start sticking them together to look like bottles and jars and brews and potions. Because I'm using PVA glue to hold all of these things down, I don't end up sticking them directly into the shelf, and I let them dry for a while. That way they are much easier to place, and the beads don't go falling apart or running anywhere. And with all of that done, we have a really nice looking alchemy shelf. Indeed, now I can study with my books and alchemy tools. Thank you kindly. So as you can see, I added some writing onto the side of the books just to make it a little bit more interesting, and added on some beads to the sides of the wardrobes and painted them in a gunmetal grey to look like hinges. This craft, super fast, real easy, and really cheap. If you like this video, like the video, and subscribe to see more next time. Thanks for watching.